What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show. You know, this didn't come out till years later and was something that, you know, Britain was obviously very, very embarrassed about. So when you kind of add that to the appeasement problem that partially got us into this war by letting Hitler do whatever the hell he wanted, to, oh my God, there was even some intelligence before we really knew how bad this was in 34, 35, where, you know, we're working with them. That might just be, in the eyes of PRville, a bridge too far, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Fair to say?
Yeah, fair to say. And I think this whole the relationship between the British and the Nazis, sort of in the mid-30s, is a fascinating part of history that really hasn't been investigated enough. And I do remember, you know, one historian who had read my book sort of contacted me after it came out, and he said, you know, that is really sort of the, you know, the blank part of the story. That's the part of the story that is the hardest thing for any writer to kind of put together, but it's probably the most interesting kind of thing you could be looking at right now, is what was the nature of the relationship between, you know, the British government and the Nazi Germany in the mid 1930s.
You gonna write that book?
No.
I think you should. You're right on it.
Too hard. Too hard. That's too hard.
You've written some pretty hard stories here. You don't want to take that one?
Yeah, but look, that book's only 350 pages long, and that took me, you know, 3 years or whatever to write, and you know, I've got to survive while writing these books. If someone was to give me $500,000 advance, I'd happily do it. If I had, you know,
might need to figure that out.
7-8 years to write this thing. You know, because these things take an inordinate amount of time.
Absolutely.
But the thing was, at the end of the day, I just felt like, after my father had suggested sort of writing Ellis's story, and I started looking into it, and I saw his sort of crappy Wikipedia entry, and I thought, you know, I owe it to this guy to kind of make an effort to kind of put his life together.
Can we pull up his Wikipedia? I'm curious to see like how they put it. I haven't read his Wikipedia.
Oh, it's good now. But when I first
they changed it.
Yeah. It's sort of covers a lot of kind of what's in the book now. But you know, when I first started working on the book, it was very brief.
Interesting. So,
you know, it sort of covers now, you know, really the things that have come out in the book, and
so they're using a lot of yours. Okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Can you go now, Alessi, real fast? Go down on the page. I just want to see some. Keep going. All right, so yeah, this is very extensive now. Yeah. And they're citing a lot of what you found. Yeah. Now that's kind of cool. So you got something into the official record, if you will, you know, the official online record. Yeah, but to change the narrative a little bit.
Yeah, but you know, really, I felt like I owed it to sort of Dick Ellis to try and write his story, to have an open mind about whether he was innocent or not, and I certainly didn't sort of go into it sort of with any kind of idea about how it was going to end or anything like that. I had a very open mind about it. Yeah, and really, by the end of it, I thought, well, no, it just doesn't stack up. And really, if he was involved in what he was involved in, quite aside from the allegations that were made against him, having you know, served, you know, the British in the First World War, you know, be a decorated war hero in the Second World War, set up the, you know, the intelligence service of Australia and the United States. You're a remarkable person. Not only that, he wrote a book on the League of Nations.
He wrote a book on the League of Nations?
He wrote a very respected book on the League of Nations when he was an agent in Geneva in 1927.
So an active agent wrote a book. That's really cool.
He wrote a 600-page book.
600 pages? We got to get you to do 600 pages on this period. Come on now.
and So not only did he do that, he he was a scholar of Central Asia. He was sort of an active anti-communist, right through to the early 1970s. He was a remarkable guy.
Man of many talents.
A man of many talents, and why don't we know about him? Because no one had attempted to write his story. So, stupidly, I just decided I was going to be the person to do it. And
Here we are.
Here we are, talking about it.
What did he have to say about the League of Nations? For people out there, that was what ended up being a predecessor to the UN, but it failed, where the United States, Woodrow Wilson invented the idea. A bunch of the allies after World War I joined it, but Woodrow Wilson had political enemies in the United States, and so Congress didn't pass it, so the U.S. never joined it, and then World War II happened, so it obviously didn't work. But he's writing this in 1927, so this is when a lot of the European countries are in it. It's active. Supposedly, it's kind of working. What did he have to say about it?
Well, it's hard work to read, and I wouldn't recommend anyone read it because it's written in very dry sort of prose. But the biggest takeaway from it was that Ellis was above all else, he wanted peace. He wanted peace between all nations, and he very, very obviously regarded the Soviet Union as the biggest threat to world peace, and that's all through that book.
The same guy who ends up being accused of being a Soviet spy.
Yeah, exactly. Right, so it doesn't make any sense, and so he's writing anti-communist kind of pieces. Academic papers, anti-communist pamphlets, all through the 50s, 60s, and early 70s. So the idea that he was a Soviet spy is completely preposterous.
Well, let's play devil's advocate for a second. I tend to agree with that. But let's say he's writing the book in 1927, and he really is actually anti-communist and anti-Soviet, and probably harbors that feeling politically throughout his life. It's not like that changes. But in the 50s, 60s, let's say he had been turned, it would be a part of keeping the cover to be able to continue writing like you had in the past.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things that I often find myself forgetting about when I'm studying different guys who have flipped in the past and the whole Cold War and what went on there is that sometimes guys who became spies for the Soviet Union, they didn't do it because of the ideology. In fact, they may have hated the ideology, but, they got caught with their pants down in the wrong place, or, their wife left them and they had no money and they weren't seeing their kids. And, Mr. KGB comes in and says, we take care of this problem for you. And now suddenly, boom, I'm on Team Soviet. So is it possible, again, your takeaway is your takeaway, and I tend to agree with you. I think this guy had a pretty distinguished career. But is it possible that someone like this could have had a blind spot somewhere that was seized upon?
Yeah, absolutely possible. But this guy had no money at the end of his life. He was financially struggling. If I really believe that if he was in the employ of the Soviet intelligence services, the KGB,
Would have had more.
He would have had more. He wouldn't be struggling. He couldn't even, pay his club memberships in London. He could hardly afford clothing. The book, A Man Called Intrepid, sort of started off as a manuscript that Ellis wrote himself. So he was sort of.
What do you mean?
Well, basically, he wrote a bunch of manuscripts about British security coordination that were rejected. Stevenson sort of asked him to sort of write an early manuscript about the work of British security coordination. It was rejected. Another book came out in the 60s called The Quiet Canadian, and then Ellis's manuscript was kind of used really as the basis for what became A Man Called Intrepid, but Ellis never saw the money. But just going back to the Wikipedia page, if you scroll up, if you go down a bit, and there's a painting
Down some more.
Down some more.
So right there.
Yeah. So there's a famous painting.
Isaac Brodsky's The Execution of the 26 Baku Commissars.
Yeah, which was this incident in what is now Turkmenistan, which is what was then Transcaspia, where Ellis was actually accused of being one of these British officers that had been painted here, who were witness to the execution of these 26 communists by a railroad, and it was a big deal at the time. It was turned into a very big deal by Stalin, and there was a man called Reginald Teague Jones, who is also supposedly one of the British officers in this picture, who Stalin sort of personally held responsible for what had happened. And Teague Jones ended up changing his name to Ronald Sinclair, and spent the rest of his life under this fake name because he was so worried that he was going to get assassinated by Soviet agents.
What year again was this?
This was, this was 1918.
Oh, so this is right as the revolution is gone underway.
Yeah, that's right. So this was right at the end of, and so when did Stalin come into power?
Stalin would have been like the 30s, I think, right? Like 32, maybe 31.
No, I think it was earlier than that.
Might have been early. Was he 20? Let's check that, Leslie. Was he all the way back at 23 or 24?
No, it was around the early 20s.
1922.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Yeah,
that's right. And
that man was there for a while.
He was there for a while. Died in 53, right?
Yep.
And so Stalin held Reginald Teague Jones responsible for the massacre of these communists. And so the question is, if Ellis was really a Soviet spy, why wouldn't he give up one of his best mates to the Soviets, who were, dispatching people all over the world? Assassins were going out killing people all over the world. There were, the great purges of the late 30s that Stalin was involved in.
Yep.
And Reginald Teague Jones, under the name Ronald Sinclair, and actually ended up becoming vice consul to Dick Ellis in New York City.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. So that would be
in the early 40s, right?
He's literally working right next to him, and then he'd be a Soviet spy and working next to a dude to execute. Yeah.
If you're a Soviet spy, why wouldn't you give up your best mate to Joseph Stalin, who was then very much alive
and very much bloodthirsty for any type of revenge?
Exactly. So it doesn't make any sense.
So, this whole thing though, because this is a part of your reporting, looking at this era politically and how communism shaped so much before World War II that then obviously got blown mainstream after World War II once Hitler was gone. But like this guy, Ryan Chapman, who is a great researcher on YouTube, he's got a really good channel. I'd recommend it to people. He put out a video earlier this year. I want to say it was called like What Really Caused World War II. And he did an excellent job of making the dichotomy all the way back to the Russian Revolution of the fear of communism, which we focus on as the Cold War phenomena, but we forget was a major theme, as you've kind of pointed out today, between 1918 and 1940. In fact, it was really the theme that led to the rise of then right-wing nationalism, be it the Nazis, be it the fascists, the fascisti in Italy, and all that. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.